Alright guys, how incredible is this? Forget E3. If you have been following us over on Twitter and Instagram at PlotArmorYT, then you should be well aware of the sheer volume of incredible anime news to be had. And here, we now have a new trailer for the My Hero Academia Movie 3 World Heroes Mission. And so without any further delay, let's get right into this stuff because it is pretty damn crazy. And you know it's crazy because with this one, we opened up with the fact that Deku is now wanted for mass murder. Now this is something that we received in a previous trailer already, but to open up with something like this, to have a bombshell be your entrance, you already know that the rest of the contents are going to be jaw-dropping, which they are. From there, we have a shot of Shibuya, Japan, wherein there are a lot of people, which is typical for Shibuya, but furthermore, their collective attention has been taken by this insignia that we may presume belongs to the main antagonists of this movie, the terrorist organization and cult known as Humanize. Now, we have covered what we know about this particular group in a previous video, so check that out if you want further explanation. But for them to be on each and every one of these big projectors and screens shows that they are now sending a message to the world over. And when it comes to groups like this, what is a message without some action? As following this, we would have a sort of gas attack, gas leaks coming up from the sewer system in a city. This seemingly being an attack on the populace, which we may presume is going to be happening everywhere else as well. And once again, for this group that hates quirks so thoroughly and believes in the Doomsday Theory, they are going to want to impact as many people as possible, so major cities are definitely on their hit list. Past this, we have a concerned All Might in a suit next to a gentleman who we are unfamiliar with. Now, based on his looks here, I would presume that this character is possibly not from Japan and is actually from another country. And now taking into consideration their attire and this backdrop, I would say that he is possibly in America with someone who is possibly an agent of some sort that he is familiar with, as he was a hero with ties to America as he went overseas for quite some time. So being able to dabble into All Might's history by way of his prior connections will be of course very fun, as that was kind of the premise for movie 1 in of itself, so to get a bit of that in movie 3 is to me a nice addition. There is then a shot of Todoroki looking very serious, and this sort of reminds me, this is reminiscent of the end of season 4 wherein his father Endeavor was facing Hood, and so Todoroki by extension got a bit of emphasis and had a sort of visual sort of like this, but I would say the difference being the mood and expression here for sure. He is far more serious as opposed to being concerned. And of course, when a character like Todoroki is serious, that typically leads into some form of action. And I can properly imagine why he is so serious because this next shot is insane. We have the main antagonist of the movie, who goes by the name of Fleckturn, standing atop a pile of corpses, and not just any corpses, not just any bodies. We have many of Class 1A and Class 1B's characters. We have the likes of Momo, Tsu, Jiro, Kaminari, Kirishima, Tetsu, Tokoyami, Nejire, Ojiro, Setsuna, Mineta, Sero, and Shoji. Now we had a teaser of this very scene previously, but it was a lot darker. It was harder to tell what was actually happening here. But here, it is oh so very clear. What an ominous scene. This is sort of reminiscent of when All For One pulled up and Deku and his friends all envisioned themselves dead in his presence, but this is way more bodies, and he is on top of it as he is shining. The light is shining on him as if by divine providence. And speaking of the divine, we then have Fleckturn holding onto a tome that is titled The Quirk Doomsday Theory and heralding it seemingly like it is a book of biblical importance. From there, we do manage to get a better look at our main villain, Fleckturn, and I mean, over on Twitter, we did get a glimpse of him the night prior, and you guys were just flaming him up. It is just hilarious what this man looks like. He, to me, looks like Osmosis Jones mixed with Mihawk from One Piece. And on the note of One Piece, Fleckturn's voice actor is the very same man that voices Zoro. And so if nothing else, I'm pretty sure we can expect a great performance here. We then have Deku bowing his head downwards as he is seemingly pleading with someone. He is asking and begging for something of some sort. which we'll be able to elaborate on in a second here. But we then have Roddy Soul, who is the new character who's being introduced with this movie, as every one of these My Hero Academia movies has a new young character to be introduced. Someone that again we spoke of at length and about in a previous video. And we furthermore get a bit of personality from this character, as he seems to have a smug look on his face, kinda cheeky here. Which then brings us to the elaboration of our prior scene where Deku seems to be pleading as he is fighting over a briefcase with Roddy. Now this seems to be a very comedic scene, but possibly what is actually in this briefcase might just be of major importance, but we don't know just yet. And at that, I'm fascinated by the difference of this additional character here, as the last two groups I suppose from the previous movies, they were more so there for Deku and just completely accepting of him as a person off rip. But here we now have a character who seems to be a bit more hesitant. Following that, we have this like bizarre bird creature that sort of looks like a Pokemon or maybe something out of Dora, like one of Swiper's off-brand cousins. And because of how bizarre and odd this thing looks, I'm sort of led to believe that this might be a quirk ability, an extension of someone's quirk powers, or an animal that is a quirk wielder, possibly like Principal Nezu. From here, however, we have a scene of Roddy freaking out as Deku is holding on to him as they are avoiding some sort of energy blast while swinging by the side of a moving train. And what are they swinging with? They are swinging with Black Whip. So here we have our confirmation that Black Whip is going to be present in this movie, which is amazing. This is something that we have been talking about. This is something that we have been hoping for. And yes, it is here and it is now confirmed. Now with the way this scene is shaping up to look like, it seems as though Deku is taking Roddy along for the ride because he can't just take the briefcase off of him. That would be a villainous thing if he just stole this from him. So alright, you don't want to give it up, alright, let's go together. Past that, we would have the Three Stooges, Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto, who seem to be in the same location that is present in the movie poster at the very top. Now this portion of it in particular seems to have some European stylings, however, somewhere else in the same general vicinity, there seems to be a metropolitan area as well. But besides the location, we have each of these guys holding onto some groceries, which leads me to believe that they may be here for a while, or they are just holding someone else's groceries, doing the job for them, the light work, like they are some sidekicks or interns. And of course you have Bakugo yelling at Deku while Shoto is indifferent to everything. And seemingly leading to this area, we have something that sort of looks like the Golden Gate Bridge. So with that, it's possible that this setting is a sort of amalgamation of various locations that are in our world. So far, I'm getting France, San Francisco, and even New York. But it doesn't look like these areas are going to stay pretty forever, as furthermore we get to see the aftermath of these attacks. That gas leak that we saw previously then leads into something like this that is just horrific. It looks as though this gas attack now flooding the streets has taken over the entirety of this city. From there, we then get to see a scene of many people who are either injured or just flat out dead by the ramifications of this attack. There is fire everywhere, and past that we have a set of empty clothing here with a top and a pair of pants, which sort of remind me of what Eri did to her father, erasing him from existence. And then we also have a guy who is sort of reeling from an electricity attack as it is still jolting his system and his body. From there, we get a better look at Humanize as a group, what they look like individually, and they sort of got this nightly religious vibe going on here. It kind of reminds me, oddly enough, of the Forever Knights from Ben 10, if anyone is familiar. But yo, from there we have a fire shot of Shoto. He is over here just blazing with anger, and it is a beautiful shot. There is then Bakugo blasting off as typical, as usual, and All Might looking very concerned and not able to do anything. Our boys then suit up, which we've seen before, but after that we have just like every hero imaginable the world over. This is definitely a World Heroes mission because everyone is here, everyone that we know and people that we really don't know. First up, we have the dragon hero Ryukyu and her female proteges, Nejire, Tsu, and Uraraka. And besides them, you have your typical riffraff, one in particular kind of reminding me of a luchador, which is of course very cool, and gotta catch them all as there is another Pokemon looking creature, one that looks like Pikachu as a raccoon. In the following shot, we have Edgeshot, Kamui Woods, Mount Lady, Kaminari, Mineta, Sero, Ibara, and a Sonic the Hedgehog looking hero that some of us may be able to recognize as a background character in the manga as well. And of course, the very hard to miss Egyptian pharaoh character here. And this guy looks pretty wacky here as he is certainly a two-dimensional character, more so than the rest of them at least. And with him being at the forefront in this way, I'm imagining we will actually get some dialogue from him because again, with that poster, we did receive a glimpse at Egypt as one of the locations. Next up there is Present Mike, Jiro, Cementoss, who does not look happy at all, Shoji, Fat Gum and his proteges Tetsu Tetsu, Kirishima and Sun Eater, as well as Gang Orca. And for this shot at least, the background characters are very much in the background here, so they're not even worth mentioning. Next up, we then have Hawks, Tokoyami, Sato, Ojiro, Shishido, who is a character from one of Horikoshi's prior works, Omaga Dokizu, as well as Godzilla, an Electroplant who you may be able to recognize from movie 1. And with that being said, it seems as though these lineup shots are indicative of placement. With these additional characters coming from America, we can presume that Hawks and the rest of them are going to America. Now this next shot has a lot more characters that we don't know than characters that we do know. We have Momo, Setsuna, and Majestic, and everyone else is a new character. We have this big lion guy, and then we have someone a lot shorter in a bear costume, some guy with a bucket on his head with a smiley face on it. There are a lot of interesting characters to look at here. So yeah, they are not kidding around with the worldly aspect of this movie. From there, we then have Roddy looking up at a plane as he looks to be in an impoverished area, and by the looks of his sleeves, it is indicative of him being impoverished himself, which we do know and have expressed again in a prior video. Now him looking up at this plane, I'm imagining that this is going to be the plane that our heroes are coming from. Our heroes in this sense being Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto. And with the indifferent expression he has here, it seems like this is definitely going to be something that is at the beginning of the movie or at the earlier portion of it. From there we have a bunch of action shots, Endeavor holding onto something very fiercely, Hawks, who again we presume to be in America, holding onto his feather blade as there are many fires behind him before he goes ahead and shouts something. We have Uraraka, who seems to be stationed in Paris as she is charging towards something, attempting to use her float quirk on it. Tsu, who we presume to be in the same location as her, who is just flinging one of these humanized members elsewhere. Burnin, a sidekick of Endeavor's, as Endeavor himself is taking off like a rocket upwards, and a hero unfamiliar to us with a sort of taser-like weapon. And by the background, again, this seems to be like the same location as Deku, Shoto, and Bakugo are in, albeit in the more metropolitan portion. And I say this because of the familiar building. From there we have Deku in his fight against Fleckturn, then two characters unfamiliar to us, one who looks really cool, who has green hair, a green tinted cloak with a red arrow tail at the top of it, as they are firing off a bow and arrow with a green string. An archery Robin Hood-esque character. I'm imagining this is going to be one of the lieutenants, one of the sub-bosses, if you will, of Humanize, along with this guy who seems to be just sort of like the muscle, the bulk, with a yellow horned mask with braids behind it. And she is just firing off from the safety of a helicopter at we don't know what. Then there's Deku holding onto Roddy again, in different attire this time, and my goodness, the animation looks good. It is just so clean in this movie. And from there we then have an even better look at this attire of his, where he is wearing brown overalls, a tan shirt, and has a sort of sack on his back. From there is Sun Eater letting off a tentacle attack, Present Mike being as loud as ever, Ryukyu going into her dragon form, Uraraka raging, Kirishima raging, Tokoyami communicating, Kaminari firing off shot after shot, turning around shot after shot, Momo moving around with these partially formed creation rings, Jiro doing a bit of sensing, Shoji doing a bit of sensing, Mineta and Sero firing off a bit, and again based off the background they are more than likely in Egypt. And then there is a quick glimpse of Deku in his proper hero costume looking a bit intense as he seems to again be holding onto Roddy, or possibly even that pack from earlier. there is a quick flash of a broken locket all of a sudden for whatever reason. There is a countdown, a timer, Deku looking at his own hand in front of a fire, which I presume to possibly be around the time that he changes attire and is wearing overalls. Maybe he goes to a more rural area of this location. Bakugo lets off an explosion. Deku holds onto Roddy again with that scene where he is trying to get the briefcase. Then we have Deku, who is again in his proper hero costume, but now a bit bloodied and beaten up, seemingly in the same setting as his fight against Fleckturn, now defying the odds and raising up to his feet as he is bleeding, but looking now at the various screens that are probably showing these countdowns or the mayhem to be witnessed across the world, probably pumping him up to go plus ultra. Bakugo in a similar or even the same space, going crazy with his quirk, and then there is Shoto, again a continuation of that prior scene where he is just charging up his flames and going insane. And then Deku continuing on from that scene where he rises up, defying the odds with that light in his eyes as he rushes inwards for an attack that looks to be an all or nothing punch here. And lastly, we have a shot of Deku. Again, we can recognize that this is the same scene, probably before he goes in for this punch, as we see the same trickle pattern of blood coming from his forehead. But yeah, he looks devastated. And that is the entirety of all these new shots coming from this trailer. But let me say that, oh my goodness, this movie is going to be incredible. Believe me, as someone who edits this footage almost daily, My Hero Academia Movie 2 was a major leap from Movie 1 in regards to how it looked visually and the animation and all of that. And this now, Movie 3, looks to be even better than that from what we have seen thus far, and that has me excited. Now, the last thing of note to be had with this trailer is at the very end, as it displays My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission Volume W. And this is a special commemoration of the movie that only the first million people to watch it in theaters in Japan will be able to get their hands on. Now, the contents of Volume W are as follows. Firstly, there is a special chapter written by the creator of the series, Horikoshi himself, concept arts and character designs, as well as a Q&A from Horikoshi and an interview with his editors. Now, you already know if it weren't for the current circumstance of the world, we here at Plot Armor would be there in a flash. We would go to Japan immediately to get our hands on this. But even still, we may or may not have some contacts out there who may be able to procure some of these volumes for us. So if you want a chance to possibly get some of these in your possession, again, be sure to follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at PlotArmorYT, because we really do love giving back to you guys, and with this being such a major event, we want to commemorate it all together, and truly there is no better way than this. But yeah guys, that just about wraps it up for this trailer breakdown. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I am very excited for Movie 3. If you are as well, let us know down below in the comments. And while you're there, never miss out on any of this sort of content by subscribing to Plot Armor with notifications on. As with everything My Hero Academia, this movie and beyond, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.